Assalamu alaikum. This is Mohammad Singh welcoming you all to the English news from BTV Chattogram. Let's begin with the headlines. High-level international conference on Rohingya situation held at UN headquarters. Chief Advisor Professor Mohammad Yunus delivers speech highlighting Rohingya crisis. UN Secretary General reaffirmed UN's strong support for Bangladesh's democratic transition and reform agenda. The testimony of Chief Investigation Officer in case of crimes against humanity against 3 people including Sheikh Hasina ends. Disaster Management and Relief Advisor calls on voters to vote in next national parliamentary elections in festive atmosphere. Kumari Puja organized in Puja Mandap across country as Mahasaptami, 3rd day of Sharadiya Durga Puja, observes today. Netanyahu agrees to Trump's 20-point peace plan to end war in Gaza. The toll in Palestine by Israeli aggression crosses 66,000. And 13th edition of Women's One International World Cup begins. India facing Sri Lanka in opening match at Boshapara Stadium. Viewers, those were the headlines. Now moving on to the details. A high-level conference on the situation of Rohingya Muslims and other minorities in Myanmar was held at the General Assembly Hall of the United Nations headquarters today. Representatives from at least 75 countries and organizations, including heads of state and government, have confirmed their participation in the conference, which began at 10 a.m. local time. The objectives of the UN-organized conference are to mobilize political support, sustain international attention on the crisis, review the overall situation and address its root causes, including human rights issues. The conference aimed to review the crisis and exchange perspectives on the ground situation in order to propose a comprehensive, innovative, concrete and time-bound plan for a sustainable resolution. Key priorities include ensuring the voluntary, safe and dignified return of Rohingya Muslims to Myanmar. The Chief Advisor Professor Mohammad Yunus gave his speech in the opening session. Turkey represented the Organization of Islamic Cooperation, while Kuwait represented the Gulf Cooperation Council at the conference. Ahead of the event, the UN High Commissioner for Refugees Filippo Grandi and the UN Secretary General's Special Envoy on Myanmar, Julie Bishop, and UNICEF Executive Director Catherine Russell held separate meetings with the Chief Advisor at his hotel on Monday and discussed issues related to the crisis. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has expressed his full support and solidarity with Bangladesh's ongoing democratic transition and reform initiatives. He made the remarks during a meeting with Chief Advisor Professor Mohammad Yunus at the UN headquarters on Monday. During the meeting, the two sides discussed a wide range of issues, including political reforms, preparation for the upcoming general election scheduled for February, accountability for the atrocities committed during the July uprising, global trade concerns surrounding protectionist tariff measures, and the upcoming International Rohingya Conference set for tomorrow. The Chief Advisor briefed the Secretary General on the reform measures undertaken by the interim government and its commitment to ensuring a free, fair, and peaceful election. In response, Secretary General Guterres reaffirmed the UN's strong support for Bangladesh's democratic transition and reform agenda. He also reiterated the UN's ongoing commitment to global advocacy for a durable solution to the Rohingya crisis. The chief advisor expressed gratitude to the Secretary General for convening Monday's high-level International Rohingya Conference, stating that the event would play a critical role in keeping the crisis at the forefront of global attention and mobilize funds for critical humanitarian responses in the camps. The UN chief also reiterated support and solidarity with Bangladesh in finding a pathway to resolve the Rohingya crisis. Professor Mohammad Yunus led a high-level delegation that included Foreign Advisor Tauhid Hussain and National Security Advisor Dr. Khalilur Rahman, Principal Secretary Sirajuddin Mia, and SDG Coordinator Lamia Morshid. The Chief Advisor Professor Mohammad Yunus has called for more frequent visits by international human rights activists to Bangladesh in the lead-up to the national election schedule for February. Chief Advisor made this urges while meeting with a high-level human rights delegation led by Carrie Kennedy, a president of the Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights Organization, on Monday at a hotel in New York. The meeting lasted for over an hour and included individuals engaged in human rights and social justice work from various countries. The Chief Advisor provided the delegation with a detailed overview of the upcoming election, the ongoing reform process, and the steps being taken to protect human rights in Bangladesh. He stated that the interim government has begun the task of rebuilding a collapsed system. Professor Yunus informed the delegation that a commission has been formed to investigate allegations of enforced disappearances. He mentioned that 11 commissions have been established to enact reforms in critical sectors. Regarding the upcoming election, Professor Yunus expressed the interim government's desire for the February polls to be free and peaceful, a type of election Bangladesh has not seen before. A key goal of the interim government is to ensure the highest voter turnout in the country's history. However, he issued a warning stating that some international quarters are trying to obstruct the election process, referring to those who do not want the election to take place. The human rights activists present at the meeting emphasized the necessity of the reforms in the security sector to ensure the safety and security of all citizens in the country. A president of the Robert F. Kennedy Human Rights, Carrie Kennedy, lawyer Catherine Cooper, Secretary General of Civil Mandip Tiwana, Chief Executive and founder of Fortify Rights Matthew Smith, Executive Director of Tech Global Institute Shabanaz Rashidia, Asia Director of Amnesty International Carolyn Nash, visiting international scholar of Ohio University Muhammad Ashrafuzzaman, among others, were present. The mass killings during the July uprising were carried out at 438 locations across 41 districts in Bangladesh. Lethal weapons were used in more than 50 districts. Mohammad Alamgir, the investigation officer in the Crimes Against Humanity case against the deposed Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina and her two top aides, made this statement today before the International Crimes Tribunal 1. The testimony began around 11:30 a.m. before the International Crimes Tribunal 1, headed by Chairman Justice Muhammad Ghulam Murtuza Mojumdar. The other two members of the tribunal are Justice Shafil Alam Mahmood and Justice Mohitul Haq Enam Chaudhary. The Chief Investigation Officer Mohammad Alamgir is testifying as a 54th witness in the case. To ensure transparency of the trial process on crimes against humanity to both the nation and the international community, the testimony was broadcast live on television and the tribunal's official Facebook page. On the third day of testimony, case documents, seizure list, documentary evidence and video footage were presented before the tribunal. From these seized materials, it was revealed that Sheikh Hasina used more than 50 mobile SIM cards. In addition, video reports of the international media outlets BBC I and Al Jazeera were also presented as evidence before the tribunal. Earlier in 22 working days, testimonies of 48 eyewitnesses and 5 seizure list witnesses, 53 witnesses in total, were recorded in the case. Meanwhile, the International Crimes Tribunal too has fixed October 6 as the next date for recording testimony in the case file over crimes against humanity in the killing of Abu Sayyed, the first martyr of the July-August mass uprising. The case is against former Begum Rokeya University Vice-Chancellor Hasibur Rashid and 30 others. The order was passed in the morning by the judicial panel headed by Tribunal 2 Chairman Justice Nuzul Islam Chaudhary. Liberation War advisor Farooq-e-Azam Bir Pratik emphasized that Durga Puja is not tied to any specific religion, rather it is a universal festival that is celebrated by people from various backgrounds. The advisor said this during his visit to the J.M. Sen Hall Puja Mandap in the city today. He noted that there is a heightened sense of enthusiasm among worshippers participating in the Puja festival this year. Regarding the upcoming national election in February, the advisor expressed optimism about the participation of all citizens in the electoral process. Divisional Commissioner Dr. Muhammad Jayuddin, Acting President of Puja Ujjapan Parishad, Chattogram City Professor Arpan Kanti Banerjee, Acting General Secretary Advocate Nikhil Kumar Nath and senior official of the administration were present at the event. The Hindu community today celebrated Mahashtami, the third day of the 5-day Sharadiya Durga Puja at various temples in the port city. The main event of the day was Kumari Puja, where devotees performed rituals and distributed prasad at temples and makeshift puja pandals. Kumari Puja is being celebrated this year in various puja mandaps including Sri Sri Radha Govinda and Shantineshwari Matri Mandir in Pathargata under the Kotwali Thana in the city. Devotees offer prayers to Mahagauri Ma on the 8th day on Navaratri by engaging in a variety of puja rituals, including chanting Durga mantras, performing Havan rites and reciting Durga Shaptashati Path. In Hinduism, this day is regarded as one of the most important days. The day Mahashashur, the demon, was killed by Ma Durga. The triumph of good over evil spirits is celebrated on this day. On this day, the majority of devotees participate in a special puja and observe first. A priest and worshippers prayed for the triumph of humanity and good over evil and expressed hopes for building a society of harmony and peace. And now, international news. President Donald Trump secured Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's backing on Monday for a U.S.-sponsored peace proposal to end a nearly 2-year-old war in Gaza. The White House released a 20-point document that called for an immediate ceasefire, an exchange of hostages held by Hamas for Palestinian prisoners held by Israel, a staged Israeli withdrawal from Gaza, Hamas disarmament, and a transitional government led by an international body. Speaking at a joint White House press conference following a meeting with Netanyahu, Trump said the war beyond very close to an illicit peace deal for the Palestinian enclave. Hamas's negotiating team is studying U.S. President Trump's 20-point plan to end Israel's war on Gaza, a Qatar's foreign ministry spokesman has confirmed. Meanwhile, Israeli forces continue to escalate attacks on the Gaza Strip, killing at least 45 people since dawn. Palestinians in Gaza have said the plan raises many questions, including what a proposed international stabilization force for the enclave might look like. Israel's war on Gaza has killed at least 66,055 people and wounded 168,346 since October 2023. Thousands more are believed to be buried under the rubble. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has apologized to Qatar for the killing of a Qatari citizen during an unprecedented Israeli attack on Hamas leaders in Doha this month, which drew global condemnation. Qatari Prime Minister Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdulrahman bin Jassim Al Thani received the apology on Monday in a joint call from United States President Donald Trump and Netanyahu during their meeting at the White House. Prime Minister Netanyahu expressed his deep regret that Israel's missile strike against Hamas targets in Qatar unintentionally killed a Qatar serviceman, a White House statement said. He further expressed regret that in targeting Hamas leadership during hostage negotiations, Israel violated Qatar's sovereignty and affirmed that Israel will not conduct such an attack again in the future. At least 5 lower-ranking Hamas members and a Qatari security official were killed in the September 9 attack, which targeted senior Hamas leaders involved in negotiation on a US-backed ceasefire proposal. Hamas top leaders survived the assassination attempt. Madagascar's President André Rajoelina dissolved his government on Monday following days of deadly unrest, which the United Nations says left at least 22 people dead. He said that Prime Minister Chairman Netse and other ministers would stay on an interim basis until a new government could be formed. He gave a 3-day time frame to review proposal for a new prime minister. At least 22 people were killed after a protest broke out over power cuts, water shortages, and widespread poverty. Thousands of people, mostly young demonstrators, have poured onto the streets since Thursday in protest against chronic electricity and water cuts and widespread poverty. Some demonstrations held signs reading "We want to live, not survive," a central slogan of the movement.